A police siren screamed through the rain as Officer Danner aimed his gun at a calm black woman standing in the middle of the road. Seconds later, a single shot echoed, and the truth began to unravel. That woman wasn't just anyone. She was FBI agent Maya Cole, and her next move would shake the entire justice system. But what really happened in those tense seconds before she pulled the trigger? If this story grips you, give it a like and share it with someone who believes in justice. Now let's go back to where it all began. I was there when the siren split the rain. Late afternoon, 2 lanes of wet asphalt and a wide stretch of Georgia fields breathing steam. A black SUV eased onto the shoulder blinkers, ticking like a nervous heartbeat. Blue and red washed over the road signs at my windshield. You don't forget that kind of light. The officer stepped out first, Blake Danner, broad shoulders, chin like he'd never had to bow it to anyone. He didn't rush. He took his time letting the siren talk for him. The rain slid off his cap in a clean line. He tapped the trunk with his palm, then came up the driver's side with a hand resting near his holster, already set on how this would go. The woman inside rolled the window down and kept both hands on the wheel. Calm. I noticed that first. Calm like someone who has memorized the rule book and still keeps one eye on the exit. Her name I'd learned was Maya Cole, 38 FBI. But in that moment, she was just a black woman on a lonely road with a cop leaning toward her. License and registration, Danner said. No, please, no pretense. Just an order. She answered evenly. Officer, I'm a federal agent. I can show you my... He smirked. Right. And I'm the president. A joke that wasn't a joke. The kind you tell to make the other person smaller. She nodded once, the kind of nod you give a storm that's already on top of you. My badge is in the inside pocket. I'm going to reach for it with my right hand. Hands where I can see them. His voice hit the glass like a hammer. Danner's right hand cleared leather. The Glock came out. It wasn't at the ground. It wasn't at the hood. It was aligned with her face. That's when the air changed. The rain sounded different, louder somehow, as if even the sky understood where this could go. Maya didn't flinch. Her eyes fixed on the gun, then on him like she was measuring something, distance, breath, the speed of a trigger pull. Her fingers spread on the wheel. The cruiser's dash cam reflected in the SUV's side mirror, a little rectangle of truth neither of them could control. Step out of the vehicle, Danner said. I'm identifying myself, she replied, steady as a metronome. I'm an FBI agent on assignment. My badge is in the right inside pocket. I will reach slowly. Danner angled closer, rain pebbling his sleeves. You people always have a reason. Step out. Now. She drew a breath you could see in the muscles of her shoulders. I'm going to move my right hand to my jacket. Slowly. He jerked the muzzle higher. The barrel and her eyes were almost level now. Do it, and you'll regret it. The road was empty, but for us, the SUV, the cruiser, my car half a football field back, and a pickup that had stopped across the way, its driver holding a phone at chest height recording, because that's how we bless the truth now with trembling hands and bad audio. Maya pushed the door open with her left forearm and stepped out into the rain. She kept her palms out, fingers splayed, chin lifted. She was smaller than he was, but she stood taller. I can't explain it better than that. I'm going to reach for my badge, she said again, slow, almost like she was narrating for the camera. Right inside pocket. Danner's lip curled, hands where I can see them. She turned just enough that I could see her face. Not empty, not fearless. A kind of tired courage, like someone who has been here before and hates that they recognize the furniture. She slid her right hand toward her jacket, measured, and opened, no sudden angle, no clutching. He moved first. The gun jumped closer, a short, mean motion. The muzzle's black ring was now a dot at her forehead. The rain made a tiny hiss on the slide. My chest went cold. Maya lifted her eyes to meet his and said, clear enough to cut through the siren and the rain. You aim to kill, officer. I aim for the truth. I don't think Danner heard the sentence so much as tasted it. His jaw tightened. He was breathing through his nose. Somewhere behind him, the cruiser's radio cracked with a burst of static. What happened next took less than a heartbeat and will live inside mine for the rest of my life. His shoulder tightened. Her right hand dipped not toward her pocket anymore, but toward her hip, smooth trained, the movement of someone who understands time as a weapon. The world telescoped into hands and metal and rain. I wish I could tell you which sound came first. My memory holds them like a single tear in a quiet room, a bang that shoved the air, a flash that whitened the road, and then a silence so heavy it pressed on my teeth. For a second I saw nothing. Rain and light and the after-image of a muzzle flare. The siren thinned out to a thin electronic whine, like a monitor searching for a pulse. When the world returned, it did it all at once. Maya was on her knees, palms flat on the wet road, fingers spread like she was holding the earth in place. Her gun slid from her hand and clattered against the paint. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, controlled bursts. She kept her eyes up, not in defiance, but as if she was making sure gravity still worked. Officer Danner was on the asphalt near the white line, clutching his shoulder. Blood pumped through his fingers, bright and rude. He wasn't dead. He was loud, cursing, breathing, trying to stand and failing. His gun lay a foot away, steaming in the rain. "Don't move," Maya said, voice. Hoarse not to him, I think, but to the moment itself. She looked at his gun, then at hers, then lifted both hands again higher than before, as if she understood the camera needed a picture that could survive a million angry mouths. The pickup driver shouted, "I got it on video. I got the whole thing." His voice sounded like relief and terror had shaken hands. A second siren answered the first from somewhere down the curve. The radio in Danner's cruiser burst into life. Unit 12 status officer down Maya closed her eyes for a beat, then opened them and spoke toward the cruiser's mic as if it could hear prayer. "This is Special Agent Maya Cole. Shots fired. One officer injured. I am uninjured. I have disarmed and am complying." Her hands trembled. Not the kind of trembling that loses aim, the kind that comes after you keep it. The rain softened. It always does, right after the worst of it. I could hear the tires of the next cruiser chewing the water a quarter mile away. The pickup driver kept saying, "I saw him aim first. I saw it. I saw it." Maya looked at Danner, really looked like she was memorizing a fact she'd need later, and then she looked at us, me. The man with the phone, the blank eye of the dash cam. Her face held a question the road couldn't answer. Will the truth land the way a bullet does? Another unit crested the hill, lights carving the gray. Footsteps, commands, the choreography we all know by now. But that's not how I remember the end of that moment. I remember the way she lifted her chin, the rain making a clean line down her jaw, and the thought that crossed my mind before any officer reached her, or cuff clicked, or report began. There are people who live their whole lives hoping never to be tested, and then there are the ones who become the test. She didn't pull the trigger for revenge. She pulled it because no one else would. The fluorescent lights hummed above the interrogation room, like they'd been waiting all day to judge her. The walls were the color of dust and resignation, gray cold, too clean. Agent Maya Cole sat alone at the metal table, her wrists free but her name already heavy in headlines outside. The door opened. Deputy Director Laura Keene, sharp suit, sharper voice, stepped in with a file clutched to her chest. "You fired at a cop, Agent Cole," she said. "Explain." Maya's hands stayed still on the table. "He aimed first." I responded. "That's not an explanation," Keene replied. "That's a defense." Without a word, Maya reached into the envelope beside her and slid a small drive across the metal surface. The screen on the wall flickered footage from the patrol car camera. Rain, a flash of light, Officer Danner's gun rising, the shot. The video ended on Maya kneeling, hands raised. Silence. The kind that eats the air. Keene's face softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "Internal Affairs will review it. Until then, you're suspended. Don't speak to the press. Don't leave town." She left before Maya could answer. The moment the door closed, the room's hum filled the space again. Maya exhaled slowly and reached into her blazer pocket. Her fingers brushed the edge of an old silk tie, her father's. The fabric was worn smooth in the middle, the way time rubs at memory. Her father, Harold Cole, had been an FBI legend, a black man who taught a generation of agents what integrity looked like, even when the system didn't. He died 10 years ago in what they called a traffic accident. They said his brakes failed on a mountain road. Maya had stood at that funeral in a black dress that didn't fit and listened to the Bureau's polished condolences. She could still hear the priest's voice, the low hum of rain on the tent, and her father's old friend whispering, "They'll call it an accident, kid. But you'll know better." The memory bled into another, her father's voice, steady and low, from when she was a girl sitting at the kitchen table. Justice isn't a dream, Maya. It's a fight. You don't pray for it, you pick it up and carry it until your hands bleed. She'd carried it ever since. Back in the present, Maya folded the tie between her palms. That piece of silk was her compass. When her pulse raced or her jaw clenched, she found it, touched it, and remembered why she did what she did. The door opened again. Evan Pike, a younger agent she'd trained with, peeked inside. "They done with you for now," she said. He closed the door behind him and leaned on the table. "You're all over the news. They're calling it another cop shooting." Maya's tone didn't change. "They'll spin it however they need to." Evan hesitated. "For what it's worth, your father trained half this bureau. People still remember him. They won't let them bury you like they did him." She looked at him, not smiling. "You sure about that?" He didn't answer. When Maya finally walked out into the hallway, every sound felt sharper, the click of heels, the distant phones, the low murmur of voices that stopped when she passed. She kept her chin up, but her stomach knew what those silences meant. Two agents stood near the vending machine, their backs half turned. They didn't notice her until she was close enough to hear. One whispered, "She's next. They'll bury her like they buried him." The other muttered, "You didn't hear that from me." Maya stopped for half a breath. Her pulse didn't spike. Her expression didn't break. She just adjusted her jacket, walked past them, and pushed open the heavy door to the outside. The late evening light hit her like a verdict gray, the same color as the walls she'd just left. She stood on the bureau steps for a long minute, rain misting her hair, traffic moving like nothing had changed. But inside, everything had. She looked out over the city skyline, then down at the tie in her hand. 10 years ago, they'd buried her father with honors and lies. Now the same system was circling her, whispering the same words, writing the same story. She tightened her grip on the fabric and whispered almost to herself, "If they think I'm next, they'd better understand. I've already started fighting." And with that, Maya Cole walked down those stone steps into the rain, her face calm, her eyes awake. Because deep down, she knew her father hadn't died by accident. He'd gotten too close to something that still breathed inside the bureau. And whatever it was, it had just turned its eyes on her. By the next morning, the story had stopped being hers. Every TV in the diner downtown blared the same headline, "FBI agent shoots hero cop without warning." Commentators spoke with practiced outrage. "She's the problem with the system," one said, waving papers like proof. Another example of violence against our officers. The facts didn't matter. The story was already written. Outside, a crowd of angry faces gathered, mostly white, waving signs that read, "Protect our police," and "No badge above the law." Flags snapped in the wind. Reporters shouted into microphones, desperate for blood or tears. On camera, Chief Alan Voss, the police chief, stepped up to a podium. His silver hair gleamed under the lights. "We will bring her to justice," he declared, his tone righteous, rehearsed. "No one is above the law." Behind him, officers nodded in unison. Meanwhile, Maya Cole sat alone in her small apartment, the blinds half closed. Rain trailed down the window like it was trying to wash the world clean. Her phone buzzed nonstop, unknown numbers, threats, calls from reporters. Someone banged on the door earlier, shouting, "Murderer?" She hadn't answered. The TV played softly in the background, her own face frozen on the screen. They used a photo from her training days, smiling proud, before the world decided what kind of woman she was. She muted the sound and stared at the tie hanging from her chair, her father's tie, its edges frayed like truth too long ignored. When the pounding in her chest got too loud, she grabbed her coat and drove. The streets of D.C. were slick, the city's glow bending in every puddle. She didn't stop until she reached a small brick house on the outskirts porch. Light flickering, wind chimes barely holding together. Samuel Graves opened the door before she knocked twice. He was in his 70s now, gray beard, heavy eyes that had seen too much bureau politics to still believe in justice without paperwork. "I figured you'd show up," he said, stepping aside. The house smelled like old coffee and gun oil. Photos lined the walls, agents and training medals gathering dust. A picture of her father, Harold Cole, smiled from a frame near the bookshelf. "I need to know what he was working on before he died," Maya said, skipping pleasantries. Samuel poured 2 mugs of coffee, black as confession. "You really want to open that door? I already did the moment I pulled that trigger." He sat across from her, hands trembling slightly as he set the mug down. Before your father's crash, he was chasing something called Project Cinder. Said it was a joint contract between the police union and a private defense company, money laundering, weapon testing, dirty politics. He had names, and one of them was Alan Voss. Maya's breath hitched. The same Voss on TV, the same. Back then he was deputy chief. Promised reform, brought in investors, said it was about modern policing. Harold thought he found proof the funds were being used for other things. What kind of things, she pressed. Samuel looked at her for a long second, then said quietly, assassinations disguised as accidents. The words hung in the air like gun smoke. He died right before he could take it to the Department of Justice. Samuel continued. Brake failure, they said. But he'd called me the night before, told me he was scared. Said if anything happened, tell Maya to stay out of it. Maya's jaw tightened. He should have known better. I don't walk away. Samuel leaned back, studying her. That's exactly what he said about himself. Outside, thunder rolled low, the sound of something old waking up. Maya stood and walked to the window. A black SUV idled across the street, engine running, no headlights. Her reflection looked back at her, in the glass calm, but with fire underneath. She turned. You kept any of his files? Samuel nodded toward the hallway. Basement, locked box. Haven't touched it since. The key's in his photo frame. She took the frame, gently slid the back open, and found a small brass key taped to the corner. It was cool in her palm, heavier than it should have been. I'm going to finish what he started, she said. Samuel's voice came from behind her, soft but sharp. Be careful, Maya. The system doesn't lose, it cleans up its own mess. She looked back at him, eyes steady. Then maybe it's time someone made a bigger one. The rain started again, harder this time, drumming against the windows like warning knocks. Samuel didn't stop her when she walked out into it. He just stood in the doorway, watching as she disappeared into the dark street, holding that brass key like a loaded truth. And if you'd been there, you'd have felt it too, that quiet moment before a storm, when justice stops being an idea and becomes a person who refuses to stay buried. The warehouse sat at the edge of the old industrial district, one of those forgotten buildings the city stopped claiming years ago. Rain tapped the metal roof in slow, nervous beats. The key Samuel had given her fit perfectly into the rusted lock. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Old FBI boxes were stacked to the ceiling, half-eaten by time. Maya swept her flashlight across a wall of filing cabinets until she found an iron safe with her father's initials carved into the corner, HC. She knelt, typed the code she'd seen in one of his notebooks, and the door clicked open. Inside lay a small black hard drive labeled in faded ink cinder. Next to it, a handful of photographs, her father shaking hands with a younger Alan Voss, both smiling like men who hadn't started lying yet. Her hand trembled when she pressed play on the recorder inside the box. A familiar voice, roughened by age and fear, filled the room. If you're hearing this, Maya, they're coming for me. Trust no one in uniform, not even the ones who call you family. The message ended with static. She just stood there for a moment, the sound still echoing in her chest. Maya opened her laptop on an old workbench, plugged in the drive, and watched as folders bloomed across the screen. Financial records, internal memos, lists of payments routed through defense contractors straight into police accounts. One file held photographs of bodies staged as suicides, all marked resolved. Her father hadn't died chasing ghosts. He'd been hunting murderers wearing badges. She copied the entire drive onto a flash stick, her jaw tight. Then she pulled out her phone and called Evan Pike. I found something, she whispered. I'm sending a backup. Keep it safe, no bureau servers. He hesitated. What is it? Proof, she said. And a reason for them to come after me next. She sent the transfer and hung up, not noticing the tiny light that blinked once on the back of her phone, a tracker hidden under the case. Across town, Chief Voss was in his office when his aide rushed in. Sir, her signal just went live. Voss's eyes narrowed. We're an old warehouse near the river. He leaned back, smiling without warmth. If she breathes another hour, you're fired. Back in the warehouse, Maya felt the hairs on her neck rise. That quiet, the kind that isn't empty, but watching. She killed the lamp. The only light left came from her laptop screen, blue and trembling on her face. She walked to the window and caught a reflection, headlights gliding across the glass. A black SUV parked just beyond the fence. No movement, just waiting. Her heartbeat steadied instead of quickening. She unplugged the laptop, slipped the flash drive into her pocket, and reached for the old silk tie in her jacket. She wrapped it around her hand, a ritual more than protection, and whispered to the memory of her father, "You were right. The system doesn't lose, it hides." Then she turned off the screen. The room fell into darkness. Outside, the rain grew heavier, masking her footsteps as she slipped out the back door. She kept to the shadows, moving between puddles and stacks of rusted barrels. Her breath controlled her mind, already calculating the next move. Behind her, through the cracked window, her abandoned laptop flickered back to life. A single line of text appeared on the screen, bright and cold against the dark, tracking signal active. The storm swallowed the sound of engines starting, and the hunt for Maya Cole began. The storm hadn't stopped since the night she left the warehouse. Out in the woods, the rain hit Samuel's cabin like a warning. The old man had built that house with his own hands. Heavy oak low-roof windows shuttered. Tonight, even the walls seemed to listen. The TV crackled in the corner. Breaking news: FBI agent on the run, suspected of treason. Maya's face filled the screen. Grainy shadowed the photo of her, in uniform, twisted into the shape of a villain. Samuel turned down the volume. "They're setting the stage," he muttered. Maya stared at her reflection in the black glass. "Voss owns the narrative. The Bureau's dancing to his music? He's done it before," Samuel said. "Your father had proof once, real proof. He tried to deliver it to the DOJ. Somebody intercepted him on that mountain road before he ever got there." The room went silent except for the rain drumming the roof. Maya looked at the tie around her wrist, the last piece of Harold Cole. "They're not just burying me," she said softly. "They're burying him again." Before Samuel could answer, the low growl of an engine rolled through the storm. Headlights swept across the windows, slicing through the dark. Then came barking, sharp, controlled. "Police K9s." Samuel moved first. "They found you." "How you called Evan, didn't you?" he asked, already pulling open a trapdoor under the rug. "If they're tracking your signal, we're out of time." The sharp hiss of radios cut through the night. A megaphone boomed outside. "FBI, step out, with your hands up." Maya's heart pounded, but her voice stayed level. "That's not the FBI." Samuel loaded a revolver from a drawer. "No, that's Voss's cleanup crew." They dropped into the cellar just as glass shattered upstairs. The sound of boots followed the rhythm of trained men. Rainwater leaked through the beams. The smell of wet soil filled the air. "Stay down," Samuel whispered. He fired once toward the ceiling. The shot echoed through the house. A voice shouted back, "Target inside, move." In gunfire answered. Wood splintered. Samuel grabbed Maya's shoulder, forcing her behind an old furnace. She could feel the tremor in his hand, but not fear, just age duty and something like defiance. When the trapdoor burst open, Samuel stepped in front of her. A flash of light, a single crack. The world slowed. Maya caught him before he hit the ground. Blood seeped through her fingers, warm and stubborn. His breath rattled once, then steadied enough to speak. "This one," he said, pulling a small USB from his pocket. "This one's clean. No trackers. He never found it." "Don't talk," she said, voice breaking. Samuel smiled faintly. "I told your father once that justice doesn't die, it waits. Looks like it was waiting for you." His eyes went still. Outside, the rain masked everything, the sirens, the orders, the shouts. Maya pressed the tie to his wound, even when she knew it wouldn't help. For a moment, she let herself cry, soundless, shaking. Then she stood. She wiped her face, pocketed the clean drive, and climbed out through the side hatch Samuel had used for decades. The night swallowed her whole. Mud clung to her boots as she ran through the trees, the lights of patrol cars bouncing like ghosts behind her. Branches whipped against her arms. Her lungs burned. She didn't look back. When the forest finally closed around her, she stopped beneath a pine and listened. Only rain, heavy and constant. She knelt, pressed her palm to the USB in her pocket, and whispered to the darkness. That night, she stopped running. She started fighting, and the storm for once seemed to listen. The docks near Savannah always looked half asleep at night, rows of rusted cranes puddles that shimmered with the color of bad memories. That's where Maya went when her phone buzzed with a single text from Evan Pike. "I found a journalist. Meet me at the docks. Midnight." She almost didn't go, but Samuel's blood was still on her sleeve, and the USB in her pocket burned like it had its own pulse. By the time she arrived, the air smelled of salt and diesel. The fog rolled in thick, muffling every sound but her footsteps. She parked 2 blocks away, walking the last stretch under broken streetlights. At first, the dock looked empty. Then a shadow moved too still to be the wind. Her instincts caught it before her eyes did the faint outline of a rifle glinting behind a shipping crate. She froze. Her hand slipped to her belt, switching on the body cam she'd hidden there, its red light blinking once. "Evan," she called out softly. Her voice carried across the water. "Where's the reporter?" A figure stepped out from the mist. Chief Alan Voss. He looked calm, like a man who'd come to sign paperwork, not kill someone. "I'll be honest," he said. "I didn't expect you to last this long." Behind him came Evan, head down, rain dripping from his hair. He couldn't meet her eyes. "Evan," she said. "Tell me you didn't." He swallowed. "They promised me a promotion. I thought it'd be clean. They said no one would get hurt." "You think that's how this works?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You think they stop at one body?" Voss chuckled, slow and deep. "You really are your father's daughter. Same righteousness, same stupidity." He thought he could expose Cinder too. "Look where that got him." Her stomach tightened. "You killed him." "I cleaned up his mess," Voss corrected. "And now I'm cleaning up yours." She glanced down as if defeated, but her thumb tapped the tiny switch on her body cam, recording everything. "You just confessed," she murmured. Voss smirked. "To you, you'll be at the bottom of the river in 5 minutes." He nodded to the men in black suits flanking him. Their safeties clicked off in unison. The fog trembled with the sound. Then Maya moved. Her hand snapped a smoke canister from her pocket, slammed it against the crate, and threw it to the ground. A hiss, then a burst of gray swallowed the dock. Gunfire cracked through the mist. She ducked, rolled, and fired twice, controlled efficient. Bullets sparked off the metal containers. Someone cursed. Another shot whistled past her ear. She could barely see, but she knew the docks better than they did. She'd studied the blueprints of every port within 50 miles when she first joined the Bureau. Voss's voice roared over the chaos. "You'll die like your father." She turned toward the sound and shouted back through the smoke. "No. I'll live like he did, fighting." Then she ran. Feet pounding against slick wood, lungs burning. She broke through the last line of crates. The river spread out in front of her, dark and endless. Behind her, flashlights cut through the fog, the beam of one landing squarely on her back. "Cole." "Don't you do it," Voss bellowed. She looked over her shoulder one last time. The men, the lights, the guns. Every piece of corruption her father had died fighting, all of it, pointed right at her. Maya took a breath, clutched the tie around her wrist, and jumped. The water hit like concrete, cold enough to knock the air from her lungs. She sank fast, the weight of her coat dragging her down. For a heartbeat, the world was nothing but bubbles and darkness. Then she kicked hard, bursting toward the surface as bullets sliced into the river behind her. When the fog cleared, the men saw only ripples. Voss stared at the empty water, jaw tight. "Find her," he hissed, but they wouldn't. Not that night. Downstream beneath the bridge lights of Savannah, Maya pulled herself onto the mud, soaked and shaking, but alive. The USB was still in her pocket, the body cam still recording. She lay there for a moment, staring up at the sky that her father never got to see again, and whispered, "You didn't die for nothing, Dad. Not this time." The camera blinked once, its red light steady against the dark. Then she crawled to her feet and vanished into the city. The blinds were drawn tight, but the glow of half-working monitors painted the tiny newsroom in a nervous blue. Old cables crawled across the floor, and a handwritten sign on the wall read, "Independent Truth Network. Lydia Stone." Maya entered, dripping wet coat heavy from the river. Lydia, 40-something, sharp eyes, hair tied back with a pencil, looked up from her keyboard. "You brought it?" she asked. Maya pulled the Cinder drive from her pocket and placed it on the desk. "You're the last one I trust." Lydia hesitated before taking it, then nodded. "Let's see what's worth dying for." Within minutes, files filled the screen, bank transfers, hidden contracts, audio clips of officials swearing secrecy. Lydia's lips parted as she scrolled. "God, this is real," she whispered. Maya just said, "Go live." They started a secure broadcast streaming to Lydia's underground news channel. Viewers popped up fast, hundreds, then thousands. On the screen, the first video played Harold Cole's voice describing Project Cinder, his face weary but determined. Then came the documents, proof of payments from defense companies to Voss's task force, and then static. The feed cut mid-sentence. The screen turned black, replaced by a blinking message. Signal blocked. Source compromised. Lydia slammed the keyboard. No, 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 they're jamming it. They're inside every network. She pulled the plug, cursed under her breath. You can't win this way, Maya. They control the air itself. Maya stared at the blank monitors, the silence louder than any siren. Then I'll burn it from within. Lydia spun toward her. You mean going back into the precinct, the central data core, that's where the original servers are. The raw proof. Lydia shook her head. That's suicide. Maya slipped the tie from her wrist, folding it carefully. Only if I fail. She turned to leave, but Lydia stepped in her path. You won't get 2 blocks without a tail. You need a distraction. I'll make one, Maya said quietly. They built this lie inside a system my father helped create. Maybe it's time his daughter finishes it the way he would have allowed. For a moment, neither woman spoke. The rain hammered harder against the windows, thunder rolling like applause for something neither of them could stop. Finally, Lydia exhaled. Then you'd better make it count. Maya reached for the doorknob, pausing just long enough to look back. When the truth hits air again, she said, make sure it's my voice they hear. And with that, she stepped into the night, one woman against the machine her father died trying to expose. The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the asphalt around the police data center into a mirror of flashing red and blue. From the outside, the building looked sterile, just concrete and glass. But inside, beneath the hum of hundreds of servers, the truth slept like a dangerous secret. Maya crouched behind a dumpster at the edge of the compound, water dripping from her hair. She checked her watch, then looked at the man beside her. Evan Pike, pale, shaking guilt carved into every line of his face. You sure about this? She asked quietly. He nodded, voice low. I owe you and your father. I was part of this mess. Let me help clean it. She studied him for a moment, searching for hesitation. There was none. She handed him a flash drive. Once we're in, plug this into the mainframe. It'll auto-broadcast the files through the Bureau's encrypted channel. No one can stop it once it starts. Evan gave a nervous laugh. So you're planning to break into a federal system and expose federal corruption using the same federal network? Exactly, she said. Poetic, isn't it? They slipped through a side gate, timing their steps between the sweep of security cameras. Inside, the corridors buzzed with cold light. Rows of glass panels reflected their shadows as they moved deeper past empty desks and humming monitors. The central server room was a glowing cathedral of technology racks of machines, cables running like veins. Maya felt her pulse quicken. She approached the console, inserted the drive, and began typing commands. Lines of code rippled across the screen like digital fire. Evan watched as the progress bar climbed. It's pulling everything, he whispered. Cinder Voss's payments, the hit orders, every last file. Maya nodded. Good. Let's wake the Bureau up. A second later, red lights began flashing overhead. Alarms. They'd been found. Outside, black SUVs screeched to a stop. SWAT teams fanned out, rifles raised. Chief Alan Voss stepped out from the lead vehicle, rain slicking his hair flat. His voice thundered through the intercom. Maya Cole, turn it off, you're destroying the country. From inside, Maya looked up at one of the cameras and replied evenly, her voice carried by the same system she was hijacking. You destroyed it the day you forgot what justice meant. Voss's jaw tightened. Move in. The front doors exploded inward. Smoke and gunfire followed. Evan ducked behind a console, returning fire with the pistol Maya had given him. Sparks flew as bullets tore through screens. Maya stayed focused on the terminal. The upload hit 82%. Keep them busy, she shouted. Evan fired again, grimacing. I'm trying. Then a shot cracked through the noise, sharper than the rest. Evan jerked backward, a dark bloom spreading across his side. Evan. He slumped against the server rack, blood smearing the metal. Don't stop, he whispered. It's almost there. His trembling hand reached for the enter key. For Harold. He pressed it, and the screen flashed. Upload complete. Every monitor in the building flickered to life. Across the Bureau's internal network video feeds rolled Voss's secret meetings, the false accident reports, Harold Cole's final message. Every agent watching that night saw it all. Voss stormed inside, gun-drawn eyes blazing. You think this makes you a hero? You think anyone will believe a traitor? Maya turned toward him slowly, her gun steady in her hand. They don't have to believe me. They just watch the truth. He fired first. The shot grazed her arm, sending her spinning behind a desk. She bit back a cry, lifted her weapon, and fired once in return. The bullet struck Voss in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. He crashed against the console, his gun clattering across the floor. The entire confrontation was still streaming live. Millions watched. Voss groaned, clutching his wound. You'll regret this. You're no better than him. Maya stepped closer, rainwater dripping from her coat. Her breath steady now. She aimed the gun squarely at him but didn't fire. The lens of the surveillance camera glinted above them. You aimed at me, she said quietly. I aimed at the truth. Voss's face went pale. The feed froze on that image, her standing over him, calm, resolute, unshaken. Sirens wailed in the distance. More agents were coming, real ones this time, the kind her father used to trust. Maya turned to Evan's still form kneeling beside him. She took his hand for a moment, whispering, You made it right. Then she rose, eyes cold but clear, and disappeared into the storm outside, leaving behind a building full of light truth and the sound of a system cracking open from within. 6 weeks later, the rain had finally stopped. The skies over D.C. were clear the morning Maya Cole walked into the federal courthouse, a place that once judged her as a criminal and now stood ready to hear the truth she nearly died to bring forward. Inside, reporters packed every bench. The words Project Cinder glowed from the courtroom screens. The evidence she and Evan had leaked was now official bank transfers, assassination orders, and internal memos bearing Voss's signature. There was no denying it anymore. Chief Alan Voss, pale and trembling, sat between his attorneys. He refused to look at Maya. Behind him, 2 federal marshals waited, hands resting near their holsters. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, the entire room exhaled. Evan was there too, rolling in quietly on a wheelchair, his face thinner but peaceful. When the judge called him to testify, he gripped the armrests, looked at Maya across the room and said, I helped cover it up. She exposed it. That's the truth. His voice broke, but no one interrupted. The judge nodded solemnly. Let the record show that Agent Evan Pike's cooperation directly contributed to the conviction of multiple officials. When Maya's turn came, she stood straight. Did you break protocol? The prosecutor asked. Yes, she said. Why? Because the system that wrote those protocols forgot what justice was for. The courtroom fell silent. Even the judge couldn't hide the flicker of respect behind his eyes. Later, outside the courthouse, the press surrounded her like a storm. Cameras flashed, microphones stretched forward. One reporter shouted, Agent Cole, how does it feel to be cleared but suspended? Maya smiled faintly. Justice doesn't always wear a badge, she replied. The next morning, headlines filled every paper, the woman who made the system blink. Some called her reckless. Others called her a hero. But for Maya, it didn't matter. The truth was out. That afternoon, as she left the building, a woman stepped forward from the crowd. She held a small boy by the hand, maybe 8 years old. Agent Cole, the woman said softly, because of you, my boy believes justice exists. Maya froze. The boy looked up at her with shy eyes, clutching a tiny plastic police badge. For the first time in weeks, her throat tightened for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Tell him, she said gently, justice exists because people fight for it. When she turned away, she thought she saw a familiar figure standing among the crowd, broad shoulders, calm eyes, the faintest smile. Her father. Or maybe just the part of him she still carried. As she reached the courthouse steps, the crowd erupted into applause. A chant rose from every side, justice for Maya, justice for Maya. Maya stopped halfway down the stairs, looking at all the faces, white, black, young, old. She raised her hand, shaking her head with a soft smile. No, she said, justice for all. And for the first time since that night in the rain, she let herself breathe. The fight wasn't over, but for once, it felt like the world had finally opened its eyes. The Horizon Initiative Training Center stood on a quiet hill outside Quantico, sunlight spilling across its glass walls, the air calm in a way Maya Cole hadn't felt in years. 6 months had passed since the trial, and now she wasn't chasing criminals or dodging bullets. She was teaching. Inside the classroom, a dozen young recruits sat straight back, notebooks open, their eyes full of idealism. Maya stood at the front in a crisp gray suit, her posture steady but kind. Law, she said, writing the word on the board means nothing without ethics. Justice isn't paperwork, it's what you do when nobody's watching. A hand went up a boy, barely 20. Agent Cole. Were you scared that day? The night you faced Voss, Maya smiled the kind that came from remembering, rather than pride. Every second she said softly, "Courage isn't about not feeling fear, it's about standing anyway." The room fell silent. Some students nodded. Others just watched her, the legend from their textbooks, suddenly human. When the bell rang, the cadets filed out, still whispering. Maya stayed behind the quiet of the empty room, settling around her. She walked to a glass display case near the door. Inside were two things: her father's worn silk tie and her own FBI badge. She placed the badge beside the tie, her reflection caught between them. "You'd like this, Dad," she whispered. They still believe justice is possible. A small boy from the janitor's family wandered in, curious, his shoes squeaking on the floor. He pointed at the tie. "Was that your dad's?" Maya knelt beside him, smiling. "Yeah, it was." "Was he a hero?" the boy asked. She paused. "He was someone who never gave up trying to be." When the boy left, Maya noticed an envelope on her desk, plain, unmarked. Inside was a single line written in block letters: "Cinder was just the beginning." For a moment she stood perfectly still, the note trembling between her fingers. Then she looked up at the window, the horizon glowing gold against the afternoon light. She slipped the note into her pocket and whispered, "Then I'll be there for the next fire." Outside, the flag waved gently in the wind. Her voice closed the story in a low, steady tone, the kind that carries truth like a bullet. When the system aims its gun at you, sometimes the only thing left to do is shoot back with truth. And that was the story of Maya Cole, a woman who proved that truth can stand taller than fear, and that justice isn't something we wait for. It's something we fight for. If this story moved you, take a moment to hit the like button and share it with someone who still believes that courage and integrity matter, because stories like this deserve to be heard. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Mr. Max Stories for more powerful tales of truth, justice, and humanity, every click, every share, every comment, it truly fuels our team to keep creating meaningful stories that speak straight to the heart. At Mr. Max Stories, we don't just tell stories, we keep the fire of justice alive.